Many people dream of the day when they finally beat cancer, but like everything with high expectations, it might not be picture perfect. While friends and family will be elated that you survived the terrible ordeal, you may not be able to envision a life where you aren't battling the disease. Additionally, the future could remain very unclear and muddled. How would you act if you received the excellent news? Would you know what to do? If you missed the 11th tale of Cancerika, Anticipation, please don't forget to listen to the reading. I'll drop a hover card in the upper right that you can click on, or in the description below. The tales are best read in sequential order. I hope that you'll find this particular tale interesting, and please feel free to leave any comments or feedback. This is the final tale of Cancerika, and I really hope you've enjoyed this series. Please let me know if it's any good or not. So don't forget to like and subscribe so you can catch more of my work as it is released. I have some other projects on the front burner at this time. Please enjoy the final tale of Cancerika, Remission, Life Goes On. Cancerika, Tales of Survival, Despair, and Hilarity. Written and narrated by Beauheart. Tale number 12, Remission, Life Goes On. And lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. Matthew chapter 28, verse 20. I slumped deep in the upholstery of the familiar chair at the hospital's oncology wing. The cushioning that molded to the contours of my back had become a home away from home for me. Hoping to pass the time, I scrolled on my phone through random X memes about the vice president being the secret offspring of Teddy Ruxpin. I had spent so much time at the hospital I probably could have started forwarding my mail there. The doctor's door finally opened and he waved his hand to beckon me in. "So, this is your latest blood work," he said, tilting the Obama-era monitor toward me. I noticed that the usual red and yellow out-of-spec cells on the Excel spreadsheet were clear instead. "As you'll notice, the abnormalities have all subsided, and your results are like those of a healthy person. You are different in one important way." "Are you going to break the news that I'm a vampire, Doc?" I asked. "I'll do you one better," the doctor said. "I'm going to stop your chemotherapy regimen for the time being, and we're going to have you just check in with us once a month. Congratulations, you're a cancer survivor. You beat serotonema, full remission." The doctor flashed a rare smile. Without thinking too much, I gave him a high five and said, "That's outstanding, Doc." It's more of a mumble than a polite acknowledgement of thanks. I always wondered how I'd act if I survived my disease. When I was at the nadir of my health and approaching death, I had visions of grandeur if I got well again. I would run wild through the streets of the city proclaiming that I whooped cancer. I just assumed I would be overcome with happiness. However, there was no instant wave of triumphant joy when I got the good news from the doctor. There was no deep appreciation for modern science for fixing me up. Rather, it felt like I had just gotten off the plane of a long international flight. I was weary and disheveled, but I knew I finally had arrived to where I was supposed to go. "Sorry if I'm not the hugging type, Doc," I said. "I'm grateful to you and your team here in oncology. It's just strange for me to process the information." "It's okay not to feel overwhelmed with bliss all of a sudden. Ambivalence is a totally normal reaction," the doctor said. "I've seen people actually accuse me of lying to them about going into remission because they couldn't fathom not fighting cancer." "Hopefully I'm not that far gone," I said. "Please make sure you stay healthy," the doctor said. "As we discussed in previous visits, the cancer is incurable, but with a good lifestyle, you might not see any symptoms of serotonema for 10, 20, even 40 years. Good luck and Godspeed." I made a note to add the doctor to my Christmas card list. He was one of the good ones. As I exited the doctor's office, I took a quick pause to lean against the door frame and look around the lobby. It was disconcerting to know that 6 months ago I had been wheeled through the exact same spot and had puked in a trash bag when I first got diagnosed. I had come around in a big loop that took me through a lot of wild ups and downs. It wasn't a perfect path I had taken because there was a huge twist in the middle, more like a Mobius strip. I was no longer the same person. I felt guilty for having gotten over cancer, like I didn't deserve such privileged treatment. Exiting the hospital that afternoon felt like leaving the scene of a crime. I envisioned myself fleeing the cops into the outskirts of the city like David Lynch's Lost Highway. I assuaged the guilt by promising to actually do something with my life. Frankie's advice would certainly help. Then I realized that not just the health burden, but a huge administrative burden had been taken off my plate. Work was never too hectic during the summer, and I would have a ton of free time not having to do chemotherapy. As YouTube grifters slinging self-help courses would say, my productive time had just been 10x'd. There's finally more time to do some stuff I always wanted to do. I got my time back, baby. Mulling over my options as I took the subway home, I split my newfound ambitions into 3 parts. The professional, learning to program in Rust. The intellectual, reading Infinite Jest. And the guilty, rewatching Season 1 of Jersey Shore. Instead of embarking on these new opportunities when I got home to my apartment, I decided it would be prudent to let some people know the good news first. I wanted to wait a day before informing Mom, since I had to tread carefully with my word choice and avoid any insults. I figured I would let Shane and Miss Eliza know the following morning at work. Mark was probably in diaper-changing purgatory, so I figured I could wait to inform him until the weekend. I decided that Zelda would be my first person to contact post-cancer. I've been texting with Zelda recently, but I only seen her once for coffee since the Guns N' Roses concert. It was a bit awkward when I told her I had cancer at first, because it turns out her brother died from brain cancer in his early 20s. She wondered why I hadn't mentioned my situation to her when we first met, and I said that I didn't want to be the Make-A-Wish kid at the Feather Creek Casino that evening. Hopefully she was forgiving in that regard, but I could tell it was a very sensitive subject for her. I fired off a text to her, hoping for a quick meet. Me: hey Zelda, got some big news. Can we meet up for drinks? Zelda: kinda busy, what's up? Perhaps drinks was a bit too bold of an invitation. I changed my tactic to invite her for some late night waters. It worked for the lovelorn guy in the Gen X sad sack movie Singles, so hopefully my overly bashful approach would yield favorable results. Me: maybe we can just meet for waters at the convenience store on Pine. Zelda: haha, sure, that would be okay. I came out of Big O's Convenience Mart with 2 of their finest sparkling waters and saw Zelda standing on the sidewalk. Even though she was wearing a frumpy red polo that said Tesla support staff, she still looked pretty cute. She waved at me. Sorry that I can only meet for a bit. I'm just super busy this week, she said. We have to do this big showroom event and I have to wake up at like 5 a.m. Ugh. How are you? Cancer-free, that's what's up, I said, giving a thumbs up. She didn't say anything and just gave me a prolonged hug. Finally she muttered, I always wanted to hear that from my brother. Sorry you couldn't be here, I said. She kept wiping away the tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, I'm really glad for you. It just brings up a lot of old memories, you know. It's no problem, I said. I never really knew what to do when a woman was crying, so I sort of just stood there with my hands in my pockets like an imbecile. What will you do now? She asked. Any big plans? She looked up at me like I was supposed to have some great idea, like I needed to make the most of my second chance at life, and I would be an ingrate for doing anything less than the spectacular. I felt I would have gravely disappointed her if I said that my hopes and dreams involved watching The Situation's antics on reruns of the Jersey Shore. I remember the promise I made to the late great Frankie. So, I've been thinking about it. I'm going to cook this massive dinner for everyone on the roof of my apartment, I said. But it won't be any sort of celebration of beating cancer or whatever. It'll be a celebration that gives thanks to all of you, the people who helped me out along the way. I spread out my arms to indicate the grandness of the dinner. I think that's wonderful. Can't wait to join, Zelda said. I'll send you the invite this week, I said. While the dinner of gratitude was a good idea, the implementation had the potential for major disaster. Unless everyone wanted to eat SpaghettiOs, I had no idea what to cook and no idea how to cook a massive dinner. Additionally, my grand gesture to Zelda had ventured dangerously into simp territory. Organizing an entire dinner just to impress a girl? Andrew Tate Bros would riot if they knew what I had just done. I justified my beta male actions by saying I needed to thank everybody anyways, and this was just a convenient way to do it. The only tricky part would be in dealing with Mom and getting her to come out to the dinner. I figured I would need a few days to develop a strategy for that. At work the following day was a slow afternoon, so I busied myself designing a flyer for the upcoming dinner on the company's dime. I decided to call the event a Night of Thanks, and my plan was to hand out the flyers to all the people who helped me during my cancer battle. Hopefully I could round up about a dozen people. I wasn't expecting all of them to come, but sometimes it's the thought that counts. For the design, I initially had the dumb idea to go with the dinner scene from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where Leatherface's catatonic grandpa is trying to hit a woman on the head with a sledgehammer. It would have been funny, but I couldn't in good conscience give such a thing to someone like Miss Eliza. Instead, I went with the less risque choice of an Alice in Wonderland theme. The Mad Hatter hosting a tea party would work great as a backdrop to the flyer. I changed the wording to "A Night of Thanks, a Night of Wonder" in stencil font, and I spooled up a dozen of them to the company's printer. After the printer did its magic, I handed one over to Shane. "Is this what you've been doing instead of work?" he said. "It's IT related, I assure you. Make sure you invite Mary to the dinner," I said. "Looks awesome. What food should we bring?" he asked. "Don't bring anything or it's getting thrown off the roof," I replied. I walked over to Miss Eliza's cubicle. We had talked for a while in the morning about what I should do post-cancer. She had a bunch of helpful tips for talking with my mom, like, "She carried you around in her tummy for 9 months. She's not going to get upset because of one little comment. Just try to open up to her." When I stuck my head in her cubicle, she was looking at charcuterie arrangements on Pinterest. Summer was always a slow time in the office. "Hey, Miss Eliza, hope I'm not interrupting. Come to my dinner in 2 weeks," I said, thrusting the flyer at her. She put on her reading glasses and looked it over. "A Night of Wonder. I'm intrigued. What's this about?" she asked. "Just a way to say thanks," I replied. "Are you going to cook for everyone?" she asked. "Yeah, it'll be great," I said. She smiled. "Okay, I will bring my appetite." Mr. Vandershoot was on a work trip in Europe, but I sent him an email with the flyer attached. I was a bit ambivalent about having the big boss join, but it would have been a slight if I ignored him. Besides, the company was generous enough to have paid for my entire cancer adventure. It probably wasn't very cheap. After work, I managed to get a hold of Tom at the old folks' home. He was the only person I knew who preferred to be called rather than texted. "That sounds great, brother," Tom said loudly over his mobile. "I'll get one of the Sunnyvale vans to bring me over." I then texted Mark to cajole him, Rose, and little Ed to join the festivities. Mark: "Pretty busy with the kiddo, but we'll make it." "Should we bring something?" Me: "Please bring classified maps to Area 51 to share with the guests. If you can't get those, just bring yourself." I sent emails to my doctor and Pastor Jim. I knew they were important guys in the community who probably got invited to these sorts of things on the regular. But it would be nice if they made a cameo. I definitely saved some seats for them. I wasn't sure if the IHOP cancer guys were still meeting after Frankie passed away, but I pulled Tim's contact from the group chat and sent him an invite. Tim: "Been thinking about you. Would love to join. Plus, I'm tired of eating fast food." Me: "That's outstanding. See you then." The final guest on the list would be Mom. I had saved the most difficult invite for last. Like the first shots of the Civil War at Fort Sumter, I fired off the opening salvo. Me: "Hey, Mom, exciting news. Call back." Mom: "Okay, just give me a few secs." After 10 minutes, my phone finally rang. "Sorry, I was on the can. What do you want?" my mother asked. "So, I've been feeling better. Well, it looks like I'm finally in remission," I said. "Great, honey. I know I'm not the most sentimental type, but I'm glad you made it," she said. By my mother's standards, this was pretty heartfelt. "Anywho, I'm organizing a dinner on the roof of my apartment. I would love for you to join. It's in 2 weeks on a Saturday," I said. "Sorry, Craig's got plans that day," she said. "Does he have to attend a fundraising gala for the symphony?" I asked. "Oh, very freaking funny. He has to work so we can pay the bills at this dump. I'm sorry, but you can reschedule it another night," she said. "Mom, I already invited like everyone else, including the CTO of my company," I pleaded. "I don't know what a CTO is, and I don't care. Can't you just do a dinner another time? It's not like the roof is going to go anywhere," she said. So this is what it had come to. My entire night of thanks, night of wonder, had been sabotaged by Mom's deadbeat boyfriend. The best laid plans of mice and men. It was very frustrating. "She carried you around in her tummy for 9 months, Miss Eliza's voice whispered to me in my mind's eye. I opted for a different approach instead of just pouting. "How about this, Mom? I send an Uber to pick you up at the house, then to Craig's shop, and the Uber will bring you here. It's not a fancy dinner, so Craig can wear his work clothes," I suggested. "The dinner will start late anyways." "Yeah, that sounds good, I guess. I'll see you then," my mother said. "Just don't let Craig steal the silverware, please," I said. I couldn't resist one final zinger. With the formalities out of the way and after booking the roof for Saturday night through my scary landlord, I was ready for the big dinner. The only small problem was I didn't know how to cook. The only experience I possessed was having viewed most episodes of Bar Rescue with John Taffer, which taught me a bit about the need for cooking with established procedures and kitchen area cleanliness. Mr. Taffer screaming obscenities at line cooks who forgot to change their gloves when handling raw chicken emulated the way I learned in the Marine Corps. If I could maintain some level of discipline in my culinary approach, I was confident that I could at least muddle through the meal portion of the evening. I started by watching some helpful YouTube tutorials. Rather than learn how to cook one big epic meal, like a gigantic roast turkey, I decided to cook a bunch of smaller meals. That way, if one meal was a stinker, there would be some other types of food to fall back on to avoid catastrophe. It was sort of like having redundant servers in the IT world, so if one crashed, the whole operation wouldn't go belly up. I learned a recipe for chili, an easy method for hard-shelled tacos, and a basic lasagna. I tried each of the dishes over the next week to see if they were any good. I was accustomed to restaurant-quality food and ordering out, so my own creations certainly weren't winning any awards. However, I actually liked being able to make small changes to the dishes by adding different spices like paprika and garlic salt. In that sense, the food tasted a bit better because I knew it was my own concoction. However, I was not prepared for how much the culinary endeavor would cost. Purchasing all the random gear needed to cook properly, like a garlic press and a melon baller, had been a small fortune. Additionally, the fresh ingredients from the store actually made the food slightly more expensive per calorie than the slop a food app could deliver. But I sucked it up, threw on my hilarious apron that said "Kiss the Chef," and continued preparing new meals on the daily. On Saturday morning before the big dinner, I went up to the roof to get the tables ready. My landlord was up there inspecting an electrical junction box. "Is this where you're doing your dinner?" my landlord asked. "Yes, sir. I'm going to set up the tables and chairs now, if that's okay," I said. "Not too many people. If someone fall through you must pay," my landlord said. So if someone died during my dinner because the entire structure collapsed, I would be held accountable. Bit of a monkey wrench in the plans, but I decided to carry on with making preparations. "You have my word, sir. There will be no engineering disasters tonight," I said. The landlord grunted in acknowledgement. I began preparing all the dishes for the dinner. Chili, tacos, nachos with cheese sauce, lasagna, salad, and a tray of fruit slices that I cut myself. Even though I wasn't a drinker, I had also purchased a few bottles of wine for the guests. Not knowing what was good, I asked the wine shop to set me up with something expensive. The bottles were in French, so I assumed that was top-notch hooch. And of course, I also bought a sixer of Bud Light for Mom, which was getting nice and cold in the fridge to drink upon her arrival. It was an all-day marathon to get everything ready. I now knew how frustrated mothers felt when they had to host a Thanksgiving dinner and all the dads goofed off to watch football. Thankfully, I was an exceptional multitasker. Everything was going well up until the afternoon when a major snafu happened. One new dish I was attempting was a huge loaf of sourdough bread. I'd bought a starter kit from the hippie co-op, even though I had no idea how to make it. The instructions advised letting it sit out at room temperature for 6 hours, so I left it out on my table to get the yeasty wholesomeness that the hippie instructions advised. It had turned into a big wad of glutinous ooze, and I put it in the oven at 325 degrees. Unfortunately, I made the rookie error of confusing metric with imperial, and I put the oven on Celsius instead of Fahrenheit. 20 minutes later, the smoke started wafting up through the oven like some Cornball 90s sitcom where the dad attempts to cook a meal. "No!" I shouted as I flung the lid of the oven open. It looked like a cluster bomb had gone off, and the top of the sourdough loaf was pitted with black singe marks. The guests were arriving in 2 hours, and there was no time to let a fresh one sit out at room temperature. Frustration overcame me, and I started screaming. "First Afghanistan, then cancer, now this sourdough crap," I yelled. I kicked the chair of my little dinette table clear across the kitchen in a fit of rage. I rubbed my temples and thought about what to do. Not having a good solution, I reverted to the basic military instinct of informing the chain of command when overwhelmed. I called my old squad leader, Mark. "Hey man, can you help me out? I burned the loaf of sourdough," I said in a state of agitation. "Well, can't you just serve something else? Or go buy a loaf? I got time to bring one down," Mark said. "No man, everything's got to be my own cooking. This is really important. I want to make everyone happy," I pleaded. Okay, just calm down. What's burnt? Just the outside? Mark asked. I stuck a knife in the middle of the mangled loaf and saw that the bread was nice and fresh on the inside. Yeah, just the outside, I said. Remember when Gunny Reyes took all the MRE crackers, made little balls out of them, and threw them in that nasty stew when we were out in the field at 29 Palms? It worked out okay, Mark said. Yeah, I'll try that. Thanks, Mark. You always know what to do, I said. I pulled out the burnt loaf and scooped out the doughy innards. I shaped them into little balls and placed them on a dish. I wrote "Eat Me" on a sticky note and placed it on the plate to hype the Alice in Wonderland vibe. It certainly wasn't perfect, but it would do in a pinch. The first guests to arrive were Shane and Mary. I led them to the fire escape across the door from my apartment and took them up to the roof. I was still taking the silverware topside, so they wandered into the kitchen to try and help schlep some of the cutlery. Get out of here, you two, I said. We can help, it's no problem, Mary said, laughing. You're just here to enjoy tonight, I said. Out, 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 I said, pointing to the door of my apartment. Miss Eliza was next to arrive, and I breathed a sigh of relief to see that she didn't have anything in tow. Glad you just brought your appetite, I said. I'm starving, she said with a smile. Everyone else should be here soon, I assured her. Mark arrived without his wife Rose and without little Ed. They send their love, but little Ed didn't want to wake up, and Rose had to watch him. I'm flying solo tonight, Mark said. I respect the sentiment. Little Ed will make a great member of the E4 Mafia someday, I said. Then Mr. Vandershoot arrived in a full-on sport jacket and tie. Thanks for coming, Mr. Vandershoot. Sorry, I should have specified that it was a casual dinner, I said. Just got in from Berlin. As long as you aren't serving the same rubber chicken they had on that Lufthansa flight, I will be delighted, Mr. Vandershoot said with a wink. I appreciate inviting your uptight boss, by the way. Even Pastor Jim and the doctor made an appearance. I hadn't expected that they would come, but I had prepared extra food, just in case. I saw that Tom arrived in the Sunnyvale van from my apartment window, and I went down to the street to grab him. The surly driver said that he couldn't wait around all night for Tom to finish dinner, and I promised to return him to the street before the van turned back into a pumpkin. Great to see you, bud, Tom said. We have to go up some stairs. Hope that's cool, I said. I didn't volunteer for this, Tom said, laughing. Tim from the IHOP Cancer guys arrived and gave me a hearty handshake. You look good, Tim said. Feels good to be in remission, doesn't it? Yeah, I don't think it's set in yet that I actually got better, I said. Don't worry about that. I've been in remission 3 years, and sometimes I wake up thinking I still need to take my cancer meds. It's a long process, believe me, he said. Zelda arrived and strolled into my apartment. Hey, thanks for coming, I said. She gave me a hug, and I began to escort her to the fire escape. Hey, yourself, so what you cooking? She asked, trying to peek around my shoulder into the kitchen. All will be revealed after the dinner's prayer, I said, laughing. Oh, come on, just let me have a quick peek, she said. Get out of my kitchen, I yelled in jest. All right, settle down there, Rachel Ray, she said. I checked my phone and saw that the Uber with my mother and Craig was en route. I quickly ran up the fire escape to check on the guests. Everyone was sipping drinks and mingling. Mission accomplished. However, I felt an incredible sense of nervousness as Mom's Uber pulled up to the front of our apartment's lobby. She stepped out with Craig and immediately fired up a Virginia Slim. Hey, Mom. Hey, Craig. You can smoke upstairs on the roof if you like, I said. I don't want to embarrass you in front of your fancy friends, my mother said. This was already not going well, but I tried to make things right. Hey, Craig, thanks for coming by. Sorry about last time. I was acting stupid because of chemo brain, you know, I said, extending my hand. Thanks, and it's no big deal. Glad you got better from the cancer and all, he said. I began bringing Mom and Craig up to the roof, but stopped for the 6-pack of Bud Light at my apartment along the way. I pulled out 2 cans from the plastic rings and handed them to the lovebirds. Wow, you really thought of everything, my mother said. I aim to please, I said. While everyone walked around the roof and chit-chatted, I was a flurry of activity, bringing up all the food. The group oohed and awed at the dishes, but I suspected that was because they thought I was going to get the dinner catered. Just making an effort seemed to win over a lot of hearts. It took me all day, so I don't want to hear any complaints, please, I said, bringing up a side of coleslaw and a bowl of refried beans. Just don't quit your day job, Mark said. I asked everyone to join around the table so we could say a prayer and get dinner started. Hey, Pastor, Tim said. It looks like we have 13 people in total. Isn't that bad luck? I almost forgot, I interjected. I pulled out a folded Harley-Davidson shirt I purchased at the flea market a week prior and draped it over the only empty seat. That one's for Frankie. Now we have 14 total. No Judases here. We all stood around our seats. I asked, Pastor, would you like to lead us in the prayer? No, it's Saturday. I'm off the clock. Why don't you lead us in the prayer instead? Pastor Jim said with a nod. Sure, here goes, I started. Thank you, God, for allowing us the opportunity to get together this evening and for giving us the strength to. I took a quick pause and looked around the table. I'm not a particularly sentimental person, but I could feel a wellspring of tears about to erupt. So I made the prayer short and sweet. For giving us the strength to join in this dinner. Amen. Amen, everyone said. The tacos were lousy, the chili was lukewarm, and I put the wrong kind of cheese in the lasagna. But everyone took it in stride and said that I had done a great job. I sort of felt like the kindergartner whose Crayola dinosaur drawing was obviously the worst in the class, but got head pats anyways. But in spite of the crummy food, we had some wonderful conversation over drinks. Mark, of course, stole the spotlight like he usually does. He regaled the group with the tale of me accidentally wandering into a suspected insurgent's house because I needed to use the bathroom. My man would have been the first in the war to get a medal for PIA, peeing in action, he joked. The doctor remarked that, most of my patients don't invite me anywhere. I must remind them of the Grim Reaper. You should start a band called Dr. Death and the Rockabillys, Tim suggested. After finishing the lasagna, Miss Eliza tried to smile, but I could tell she was not thrilled with the quality. Don't worry, she said. We'll try my grandmother's recipe next time. I can show you. Pastor Jim was talking with Shane and Mary about the upcoming church bake sale. We'll bring along some of my tacos, I suggested. People will pay the church to not have to eat them. Pastor Jim chuckled. I actually like the tacos. I once did some missionary work in Nicaragua and we cooked them in the same style. Did they use a horse for the meat in Nicaragua too? Mark asked. Oh, that's nasty, Mark, Miss Eliza said. I've been to some pretty gross places in Tijuana, Tom said. Believe me, those tacos weren't that bad. My mother and Craig were chatting up with Mr. Vandershoot. I hope that I still had a job on Monday morning. So, are you the big computer nerd boss or what? My mother asked. Well, the young men and women on the IT side don't usually refer to themselves as nerds. However, they do tend to have certain personality traits that make them more suitable for that line of work, Mr. Vandershoot said. I just can't believe you're paying my kid to play video games all day, my mom said. We pay people for doing much less. Besides, he does great work for us, Mr. Vandershoot replied. Zelda was seated next to me, and she had been reassuring all night. She could tell I was a bit freaked out, hoping that everyone would have a fun time. I kind of knew the food was going to not be the greatest, but I really wanted everyone to get along and have a good night, particularly my mother. Everything came out nice. You're a good friend and a good son, Zelda said. She gave my hand a little squeeze. I smiled. I think it's time for a toast, I said to her. I gave the customary clink on my sparkling grape juice glass and stood up. You're not going to ask us to join your multi-level marketing scheme to sell yoga pants, are you? Mark asked. No, that's tomorrow night, I said. Tonight, I'd just like to give a toast to everyone who came. I couldn't have beat cancer without you all, so thank you. Hear, hear, they said. I felt my toast was a bit generic, so I dug down deep for something more ample. You know, having cancer, it's like you really feel the ups and downs of life, I said. Everything's really good or really bad. It's all in overdrive. It's like living through Acts in 50 AD, very intense. I looked at the pastor for confirmation that I wasn't saying something insane, and he nodded his head in approval. Everything is real. You take nothing for granted. But when it's over, everything feels like it was a crazy fever dream. It's wild. I'm grateful you all were around when I had cancer the last 6 months. Tonight, I'm glad I could celebrate life with everyone, I said as I raised my glass. To life, I yelled. To life, everyone responded. I know Frankie would have liked this toast. Let's just take 10 seconds to enjoy life together. Just 10 quiet seconds, I said. We all looked down for a bit of time. I spent the brief 10 seconds just being grateful that everyone had shown up, even though I knew I wasn't the nicest guy to be around at times, even though I screwed up at times, even though I tried to shut myself in when I knew I was dying. Thanks, everybody, I said. It was getting late and people began to go home. One by one, I escorted everyone downstairs and thanked them for coming. When my mother and Craig had to go, she actually gave me a hug. "You know, I never thought you were a screw-up. I'm just kidding around, you know," she said. "How did you read my mind like that?" I asked. "My mother always knows. Deep down, I knew you were hurting, but I knew you would get well, too. That's why I wasn't too worried. Don't be a stranger at our place," she said. I called an Uber for her and Craig and bid them goodbye. Zelda stuck around with me on the rooftop. "You sure you don't want to go home, Zelda? This place is trashed, but I can clean up," I asked. "No, it's all right. I feel like we're a married couple cleaning up after a party. It's fun," she said. "Haha, would that be so bad?" I asked. "I could think of worse things," she said. It took a while to clean up, and it was well past midnight. Zelda gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. She finally headed home. I sat on the roof of my apartment for what seemed like a very long time. I was in between a feeling of nervousness and a feeling of joy. Either way, I couldn't sleep. I patiently stood on the edge of the roof, waiting for the sun to come up, anticipating my favorite part of the day. After I got back from Afghanistan, I thought life would be like what Charlie Sheen said in the final scene of Platoon. "The war is over for me now, but it will always be there. The rest of my days. Those of us who did make it have an obligation to build again, to find a goodness and meaning to this life." It seemed poetic that we would go on to live noble lives after something terrible. But Father Time made those who were there, and the rest of society, forget what happened. While I was still sick, I thought getting through cancer might be similar. I would just forget about the whole thing if I recovered. But the reality was a much different situation. Serotonin had caused an unmistakable change in me. It was partly grotesque and partly mind-altering. Like James Woods' character arc in Videodrome, I could still feel its tendrils of pain shooting through my body, even though I hadn't really needed the meds to cure the pain in weeks. I was a Cronenberg-esque body horror. It was a burden I would have to carry forever, but it made me a much more resilient person. Long live the new flesh. I wasn't sure if I would continue on with my IT job, or maybe I could try my luck in a new city. Would going abroad to a new country help? The grass was always greener. Maybe I could try teaching children. Perhaps not as a school teacher, but as some kind of volunteer. I always had a fondness for youth. Would I get rich with my crypto? I guess it's possible, but I never really wanted to be wealthy. I could just give it all away to the church like I planned to do if I had croaked. Maybe Zelda and I could get married like she joked about. That wouldn't be so bad. I really hadn't thought it through well enough. What I did know was that death had its icy grip grasped around my throat, and God had saved me for a reason. I'd spend the rest of my life trying to find out what that reason was. The end. Thank you for having a listen to this tale of Cancerika. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below whether you like the story or not. A forthcoming ebook, print book, and audiobook with all 12 tales will be released on April 18th, 2025 on Amazon and Audible. Links are posted in the description below. The pre-order is available for the ebook. It's $4.99 or free if you're an Amazon Prime. You can shoot your mouth off at me over on X. I'm at Beauheart. Please visit friendlyfrogpress.com to see our collection of ebooks, paperbacks, and audiobooks that are for sale at Amazon and Audible. Until next time, this is Paul Beauheart, signing off.